Take a look at the H1 freeway during rush hour. It's a complete standstill. Now look up. You'll see a sleek, driverless train gliding along a concrete ribbon high above the gridlock. This is the Skyline. It's America's first fully automated, large-scale urban metro, and on paper, it's a technological masterpiece. But if you look closer at the numbers, it's also a fiscal catastrophe. Back in 2006, the draft plan estimated this entire system would cost $2.5 billion and be finished by 2020. Well, it's early 2026, the price tag has cleared $10 billion, and the most important part of the line still isn't open. So how does a project spend 20 years in development and still feel like an unfinished torso? To understand why Hawaii is so desperate for this to work, you have to look at Oahu as a closed system. Oahu isn't just small, it's compressed. The Ko'olau Mountains run along one side, the Pacific sits on the other, and almost everyone on the island lives in the narrow corridor squeezed between them. That's where the jobs are, the airport, the schools, everything. And running straight through that corridor is the H1, the freeway that connects it all. The H1 consistently ranks among the most congested roads in the entire country. And since there's physically no room to widen the roads, the only way to move more people was to build vertically. So the city went all in. And when you go all in on an island with no margin for error, the stakes get very specific very fast. Over $10 billion in public money across federal, state and county sources. HART submitted multiple recovery plans from 2016 to 2019, but it wasn't until 2022 that the FTA approved the final plan and released the remaining $744 million in federal funds. And right now, with only 2 segments open, it's projected to cost about $120 million a year to operate and maintain. Commuters were promised a 38-minute ride from East Kapolei, west suburbs, to downtown Honolulu by 2020. That's still not available. Not in 2020, not today in 2026. The people it was built for are still in traffic. So did something go wrong with the plan? Not exactly. The bigger issue is that the project slowly drifted away from the original plan over time. The original vision was 19 stations, just under 19 miles, running from East Kapolei on the western end of the island all the way to Ala Moana Center, a massive commercial and transit hub right on the edge of downtown Honolulu. The whole line elevated, the whole line automated, end to end. What exists today is 15 miles and 13 stations. The most recent milestone came in October 2025 when the airport extension finally opened. And for the first time ever, you can take a train directly from West Oahu to Honolulu's International Airport. That's very useful. But the airport is not downtown, and the stretch that gets people into the heart of the city, Segment 3, 3 miles from Middle Street to the Civic Center, is still under construction, with a target completion date of 2031 that even federal officials are starting to question. And then there's the cut that quietly changed what this project is. In 2022, the city eliminated the final 2 stations, including Ala Moana Center, to keep costs from climbing even further. The line now ends in Kaka'ako, 2 stops short of the destination that was the whole point for most riders. The commercial hub that anchored the ridership projections, the place that made the commute worth talking about, gone from the plan. We'll come back to what that decision actually cost because the numbers tell a pretty stark story. But first, the technology running underneath all of this drama is worth understanding because it's not what most American cities have built. Actually, there are no drivers on these trains. That's still not a common thing in the US. Everything runs through a centralized operations center, a 43-acre facility that acts as the brain of the entire network. It handles driving, safety spacing, and real-time monitoring across every train on the line simultaneously. The system takes the decisions. Physically, the setup is straightforward by design. Standard gauge track, 750-volt DC third rail power, platform screen doors at every station that sync with the train doors. The entire guideway is elevated, which means no traffic lights, pedestrians, or surface interference of any kind. It was designed to run every 3 minutes during peak hours. Right now, it runs every 10. That gap isn't a technical limitation. The system can handle the frequency. It's a reflection of where ridership is today, on a line that still doesn't reach the destinations most people need. That's the tension sitting at the center of this whole project. The technology works. The infrastructure exists, but the line was built from the suburban end inward, and the destinations are still either under construction or permanently cut. A 3-minute system running at 10 minutes because the riders aren't there yet. And the riders aren't there yet because the line doesn't go where they're going. That brings us to how this happened. The strategy was to open the line in phases. Segment 1, the Western Foundation, opened in June 2023. It was mostly suburban terrain, so it should have been easy, yet it still opened 3 years late. Then came Segment 2, which was a logistical puzzle. They had to build through active military land at Pearl Harbor and navigate the strict height limits near the airport. But as they built, the cracks started to show. In 2016, a manufacturing defect in aluminium car shell components reportedly affected up to 27 rail cars during production, though later reports said the issue was resolved. During testing in 2020, engineers realized the train wheels were about half an inch narrower than the track crossings. Now, all eyes are on Segment 3. It's the hardest part yet, requiring deep foundation work in a dense urban core filled with centuries-old, unmapped utilities. Tutor Perini won the $1.66 billion contract for Segment 3 in August 2024, and while we're finally seeing columns rise in early 2026, the path ahead is anything but smooth. When you look at why this project hit a wall, it's not just one thing, it's 3 layers of failure. First, the technical problems. The wheel-rail mismatch was only one example of poor oversight. On Segment 2 alone, there were dozens of change orders because the construction plans didn't match the reality underground, especially with utilities that weren't mapped properly. Second, governance and legal issues. Hawaii has a strong cultural heritage, and in 2012, the Hawaii Supreme Court stopped the project because the city failed to properly check for native Hawaiian burial sites, known as iwi kupuna. Protecting these sites is both sacred and legally required, which led to years of redesigns and delays. At the same time, there's a major legal dispute. Hitachi Rail is suing the city for $320 million, claiming gross mismanagement. According to the company, they were asked to hire workers 18 months before the work was ready. The city responded with its own lawsuit, and now the disagreement has stalled design work for the next phase because neither side wants to cover the cost. Finally, financial planning was unrealistic from the start. That original figure didn't account for Hawaii's 20 to 30% labor cost premium, island shipping logistics, or the archaeological survey requirements that state law mandates. As the budget kept rising, the city submitted repeated recovery plans to federal authorities. In 2022, the project made a major cut, known as the Ala Moana cut. 2 planned stations were removed to save money. This decision weakened the system. That 30% ridership shortfall we mentioned wasn't an accident. It was a direct consequence of that, according to Hart's own projections, all because the rail line no longer reaches one of the main destinations people travel to. So, who actually wins here? If you're a commuter in West Oahu or someone heading to the airport, the system is genuinely beneficial. That connection does take some pressure off the H1, but if you're a downtown worker, you're still waiting until at least 2031, and even that date is looking shaky because of the Hitachi lawsuit. The ridership numbers highlight the challenge. In February 2026, the system averaged about 11,500 rides a day. For a $10 billion investment on an island with world-class gridlock, that's a fraction of what they hoped for. The city is now facing a massive gap. That $120 million annual bill breaks down to roughly $28 per ride at current ridership, more than 10 times the fare, all to run a system that was built toward the suburbs while the high-density destinations remain out of reach. Right now, Skyline sits in a strange position. On one side, construction is still moving forward in the urban core. On the other, The city recently passed Bill 60, which allows studies for future rail extensions to Waikiki and the University of Hawaii. The problem? There is no funding yet. City leaders are even exploring partnerships with companies like Tokyu, a Japanese rail firm, hoping private investment could help build housing and development around rail stations to make the system financially viable. In many ways, Skyline has become a textbook example of a larger problem. Why major infrastructure projects in the US often cost far more and take far longer than expected. Early cost estimates are sometimes overly optimistic to gain political approval. Later, when problems appear, weak oversight makes accountability difficult. Today, the trains are running and more sections will likely open in the future. But the version of Skyline that voters approved in 2008 no longer exists. What remains is smaller, more expensive, and still incomplete. So the real question is this: was the journey worth it? Should any city have to spend 20 years and $10 billion just to find out whether a transit system will work? What do you think about Honolulu's Skyline project? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into massive infrastructure and engineering projects, subscribe to MegaBuilds for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.